many people in the street in the UK doubting the wisdom of this, many politicians doubting it too. What insight can you give us?
It's good to see that we have more coalition partners, and thanks for having me tonight. It's good to see that somebody's actually actioning the targets the U.S. has been providing. If you remember, France targeted something that we gave them, and those of us back here in D.C. that work these issues were wondering, well, how come we haven't attacked this target yet? So it's good to see that other nations are willing to actually target based on the intelligence the U.S. has provided. The thing that's unfortunate about that is that a lot of these targets are 60 to 90 days old. I'd say that to the first part of that. Second part is, without a capable ground force in Syria and Iraq, you're not likely to dislodge ISIS from Raqqa and Deir ez-Zor and in Mosul and Ramadi, as we see with the Ramadi offensive. You need a capable Sunni ground force, and that force is exiting Syria as part of the refugee exit, the refugees that are actually leaving Syria.
So in some way, then, the political arguments that we're hearing for or against really, I suppose, don't add up to that much, because it seems what you're saying is that more needs to be done. The coalition needs to push further in order to help finally get rid of this Islamic State group.
You know, I think the answer actually is in the EU with the Syrian refugees. If EU countries are worried about going to war with ISIS in Syria, well, you have your ground force right there in the EU. You should take a lot of these unwed Syrian military-age males, take them to EU military bases, screen them, vet them, make them intelligence collectors, and make them the people on the ground that are actually calling in these airstrikes. Most Syrian refugees want to go home. They just want to see a reason to hope for Syria's future. And if they're starting to see military action by the EU and the Americans, this may be exactly what we need to get them to turn around. We just need to look at that asset. You have this large force in the EU. We call them refugees. Those of us that used to be in the military look at them as an asset. Let's train them. Let's get them back in the fight, have them fight ISIS and fight Assad. I think that's a solution. That's a strategy.
In terms of what we're hearing about sometime soon, perhaps, boots on the ground, I believe that phrase coming from the mouth of John Kerry, no less. Is that something that you see as an inevitability?
I don't know where these boots on the ground are going to go. That's the biggest problem. If you look at, you have to establish a safe zone. The president doesn't want to establish a safe zone because that means you have to enforce it, meaning you have to be able to shoot down aircraft that come in, meaning Russian aircraft, meaning Iranian aircraft. The Iranians are getting ready to introduce a squadron to Syria, so they're going to start conducting sorties as well. Russia now controls the airspace in Syria with the S-400 that is now at Latakia. The S-400 battery basically controls all the airspace in Syria as well as southern Turkey. So as we talk about putting boots on the ground, yeah, you can have, but they have to work with an indigenous force, and that force needs to be a Sunni one. The Kurds can only do so much. The program fall flat. Nobody wanted to join it because there were too many constraints on it, and it wasn't being supported. So we need to look at Iraq and Syria like ISIS does. They see it as one state. We need to do the same thing. We need ground forces in both places. The best place to put boots on the ground is Iraq, but still have a Syria first strategy using bases in Iraq to do that.
Michael Pregent from the National Defense University in Washington, thank you, sir, very much for sharing your analysis with us.